Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on October 13th, 2021 at approximately 6:29 a.m. PST. I've been watching a lot of the posts going through Facebook recently. And here's the thing. Okay, they have been changing, which is a good thing. Now, I build myself as a spiritual guide, and here's the thing, here's the reality behind that. From my standpoint, I simply am relaying the tools that I personally use and the philosophies I personally live by. Now, I see a lot of hypocrisy still going on, but more of it is coming through people in power and the ones that are sitting in positions of power or the ones that claim to be sitting in positions of power. Now, the reality that I've found is this. We can concentrate on the things that are going wrong with the world, or we can concentrate on the things that are going right. And people do this all the time in a lot of ways. For instance, you have a heart attack, and all of a sudden you can't do this, and you have to take this medication or what have you in order to stay alive. Okay, or you have a stroke and all of a sudden you don't have the capacity to do whatever it was you were doing. Okay, what have you lost? You can no longer, I can understand the issue of I'm no longer thinking as straight as I'd like, but here's the neat part about that. How did you get to think straight in the first place? Okay, did you get to think straight because you just automatically knew how? Or was it because you started reading more? Now, in today's world, you don't read much. Okay, in all fairness, you really don't. People spend more time listening to other people talk. More often than not, I find it's regurgitated stuff that doesn't actually add up, which is why you hear multiple people saying the same thing. They're literally regurgitating the same thing. Now, here's some of the benefits that have happened from my end. Okay, I had a major heart attack. Okay, and that major heart attack led me down a couple of roads, but medication wasn't one of them. What it did cause me to do. Okay, well, let's go back a little earlier. I tore my leg apart. Now, I never did get it operated on. I never did get it repaired per se, but I learned to work with it. And what it did and what getting my leg damaged did was it forced me essentially to look to the academic side, to the learning side of things. Now, when I had the fever, I guess we should go back ways before that. Because when I had the fever when I was a child, it created all kinds of complications that I did not have the wherewithal to correct. I got diagnosed mentally retarded. How I ended up in a course in theoretical genetics when I was in high school, I don't know, given that I was diagnosed mentally retarded. But what I do know is I took that issue that I couldn't do the physical stuff. I just wasn't capable. And I turned to the academic side. Now, when I had my heart, when my leg finally gave out on me, I quit working in the restaurants. I'd spent 24 years working in restaurants and finally gave it up because the leg just wouldn't hold it. And I turned to more of an esoteric field. But when I had the heart attack, this is where it starts to get very important. Because many of you, undoubtedly my age, have had at least one. Now, what the heart attack did for me is it didn't stop me from living. What it did cause me to do, though, was reassess how I was living. And subsequently, I started paying a little more attention to my health. When I had the major stroke, they told me point blank, you're going to be in the hospital for 4 to 6 months because it's a pretty nasty one. What that did for me was got me to look at it and go, okay, what am I not capable of doing? And the only thing that really got to me, I mean, my speech was a pain in the neck. It still is, by the way. I still don't speak well, which is why I don't read my own books out loud. Like, I don't turn them into auditories. But yes, I lost the ability to do a number of things. Okay, but what it got me to do was look at my health a whole lot more. Okay, because when I had the stroke, they said, okay, your blood pressure is too high, your heart rate's off, your sugar level's up. Did I panic and go, oh, I can't have sweets? Well, I was lucky. I didn't have a sweet tooth to start with. But I didn't go, okay, I'm going to take all this medication. It's like, okay, I require the medication for the time being. At present, doctors aren't happy because I'm not paying the bill for their medications. Okay, and they're still thinking the medication is the answer. What I did was I changed my exercise level, I changed my diet, and net result, blood pressure's down to normal, weight's down to functional, and my sugar levels are in good shape. I'm still working on what the salt deal is going on. Okay. When my eyes started, when my eyes collapsed. Now my eyes didn't collapse because of genetics in my case. They collapsed because I ended up taking a trailer hitch to the one eye. And that just completely screwed up everything. Okay. But I didn't let that slow me down much either. Instead, I found a way to correct my eyesight. At this point, like it used to be, holding my glasses right there, I couldn't see them. Okay. But what I found was by modifying what I was doing and by changing my mindset, I was able to correct my eyesight. Okay, to the point that I can now see quite clearly half the time without looking at my glasses at all. Okay, now is my eyesight great? No, but I can work with it. Now this brings us up to the current situation. Okay, and the current run-of-the-mill situation right now is this whole thing about the masks, the van, and the vaccines, and oh, you can't have this. You need a passport for that. You're not allowed to go to this place or that place. Now, admittedly, there are many of these things that I'm not allowed to do right now. Okay, because of my choices. And as the saying goes, you do have freedom of choice. You can choose anything you desire, but you don't have freedom from the consequences of your choice. Now, I looked at this whole thing, and anybody that knows me that has asked, have you had a vaccine? Well, in my case, no. But here's the neat part about it. Therefore, without said vaccine, okay, and before anybody jumps on that one, I've told my own kids, my own son that lives with me, I told him, if you desire the vaccine, we'll get you down there. You can get it. Your choice. I am very much a proponent for freedom of choice in all things. Okay. You have the choice to do what you will. Now, that being said, what it has done for me, I could go, oh, I can't go out and I can't go here and there, which is true, I can't. I cannot travel. Thankfully, I get way too nervous leaving my own house, never mind traveling across the country at this point in my life. I can't go to restaurants. Well, fortunately, before this whole passport thing came into existence, I was going through $300 to $400 a month that I couldn't really afford in restaurants. Net result, because this whole thing came out, I'm looking at it going, people have said, well, you got to get the vaccine or you can't go out. And I'm like, I was having trouble stopping myself from going out. I had more trouble stopping myself going out to a restaurant than I did stopping myself from going to a bar. When I was drinking 26 ounces a night without even blinking. Right. But I couldn't seem to stop myself from going to the restaurants. So when the vaccine came out, when the vaccine passport came out, it's like, oh, well, now I've got this neat little thing that says I can't go. This is one of the reasons why I love what they did with the gambling halls. When they came up, at least in BC, and I think Alberta up here in Canada, they came up with a gambling addicts solution. Okay, where they said, okay, you put your name on this list voluntarily. Okay, we don't tell you have to put your name on the list. But if you put your name on the list voluntarily, we'll do it in a heartbeat and we'll escort you out of the building, no harm done. But if we catch you back in here, we will escort you out as soon as we find you. Right. And then of course, if you want off said list, then you turn around and it'll take you 6 months to get off that list. It's a great if you will, crutch for people that have gambling problems. In my case, the same thing sort of happened when they came out with the passport to go out to restaurants. All of a sudden, I've got this situation. I either go and get the vaccine and get the passport, which personally I'm not interested in, and that's just personally. But what it does is instead of the passport encouraging me to go and get the vaccine, it's like, why would I go and do it? The passport says I cannot go to a restaurant. This is saving me $300 to $400 a month without any effort at all. Okay, because I can't go there. I don't order over the phone for takeout and what have you. So I end up buying my groceries. And even that, there is a way now that I'm slowly getting into the idea of how to order groceries without leaving the house, which is probably not a good thing in a lot of ways. Okay, but for me, it's working well. So, of course, I'm sitting here going, well, I don't have the vaccine, I don't have the passport, therefore, I cannot go to the restaurants, which is costing me too much. Okay, I cannot go to group events. Well, sadly, going to group events, unless I'm absolutely working at them, I get very edgy at them. This is why I don't go to places like the malls and what have you. Too many people. I went to the grocery store the other day, and there was only like 30 people in the whole grocery store, and I was edgier than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. So not having to go out, and having a passport, having the stipulation that says, you can't go out and be amongst people. I'm like, and that's going to encourage me to get the vaccine. How? It's like, stay home, stay away from people, and drink warm liquids. And I'm going, well, I've got a fair supply of coffee. My coffee, because of the weakness that I put in, because of the weak strain that I use, it'll last me a lot. It lasts me at least 4 times longer than most people, in spite of the fact that I'm drinking as much as I do, because I only use a quart of the coffee that most people use. Okay, when it comes to the reality behind it, when you start looking at yourself and you go, what have I got? What am I able to do? Okay, instead of what can I no longer do? That's when things shift gears. Okay, and when more people start realizing that you have to treat other people as you desire to be treated, and that is ultimately the message I return to this lifetime to pass on, is that working together, we can make this a better world for everyone. Well, for virtually everyone. Okay. It's done me this whole thing has done me the world of good, because I've been taking a look back at things. Okay, I've got a lot of the junk that was in my house is now gone. I'm still working on more of it. Okay, but then I spent a lot of years as a pack rat. Now, I got thinking this morning, we've been 2 years in the middle of this pandemic. Now, I remember living during the Black Plague, during the Black Death. And it did eventually, without all the human vaccines, without all the medical additions to the bloodstream, we did get through it. Granted, it took us 5 years. But in all fairness, it didn't spread at the speed that this one did. So where we are now, where mankind is right now, took about 4 years to get there without the vaccines, just to get the virus to spread that badly. Okay, it took us a good 4 years to get to that point. Well, we've done in 2 years what they did in 4, which means the body itself figured out how to compensate by doing simple things. Back during the Black Death, We kept our distance from each other, okay, as much as possible. We did our best to get it to sanitize, to clean, to clean a little better, to clean up the junk around our houses, okay, or around our establishments. We did our best to contain the garbage in one location, okay. And the thing is, because we kept our distance, in time, we did eventually solve the problem. Okay. Now, I don't know what the history books say as far as what went on with the Black Death. I know what I went through. I remember that quite clearly. I was lucky. I made an absolute killing that lifetime. Of course, I was a coroner that was also immune to the Black Death. Now, this lifetime, we got to understand there are similarities here. Okay, aside from the heart attack, the massive heart attack, the annoying stroke, and 2 tooth infections, I haven't personally been ill in over 25 years. Yeah, I've had a sneeze or two. Okay, and God knows I've choked on my coffee more often than I care to count. But the reality is, I just plain don't get sick. Now, some will say, "Oh, you're going to get sick now because you said you don't," and you're welcome to that belief. The catch is, I don't believe it. I don't put myself in situations where I'm likely to. Okay, and I have been doing a lot better as far as getting my house organized, which definitely has helped the energy flow. And the neat part about it, with all of that in mind, is we are at a situation right now where you have to realize, okay, mankind is trying to outrun Mother Nature. It doesn't work well. Mother Nature is way better at it. She's been at it a lot longer than people have. Okay. You want to make things better for yourselves? That's great. Start focusing on what you've got and what the similarities are between you and the peoples around you instead of the differences. Okay. Because if there was that much difference, you'll notice, regardless of what skin color you are, regardless of who you're voting for, regardless of your orientation, okay, people are getting sick. It's not some sort of conspiracy and a blowing picture and blowing numbers out of proportion, although I question the numbers myself. But the reality is itself that the illness is real. Okay, the Black Death was real. And we did have people back then going, "Oh, I'm not going to get sick." Most of them ended up dead because what they didn't do, they said they wouldn't get sick, and that they wouldn't get sick. And then they would go and deliberately get right involved in whatever it was. They wouldn't take precautions. Now, the thing with us coroners back during the Black Death, okay, and this is the same thing with the rest of you. Because of the stuff we were working with, we had a tendency of being a whole lot more concerned with washing up after work. Okay, or first thing in the morning for that matter, where we tended to keep our places a lot cleaner, a lot more sanitized, if you will. And in our case, we were just using water. Okay, granted, sometimes we used stones on clothing and what have you, but we were just using water. Okay, water, a little bit of soap. It wasn't any sort of chemical addition. And we still managed to get through it. Okay. Now, did the world go back to the way it was? Well, clearly not. We didn't get the Black Plague again for a while. Okay, but people tend to forget that the trick to staying healthy is, frankly, you start with a healthy mind. And that doesn't mean you can't think about weird things. Okay. It means that you've got to stay focused on the idea of following your heart, but using your head to get there. For instance, for me, I desire to get out of debt. Well, that's my heart. Okay. Using my head to get there boils down to this. Watch what I'm doing with finances. Thankfully, and I do mean that quite literally, thankfully, when this whole passport thing came out, all of a sudden you just lock down the whole situation. Can't go out for lunch anymore. I'm saving like $400 a month. Now, I don't know about your bank account, but to my bank account, that makes the world of difference. Okay. Now, instead of having a couple of days worth of food in the house, I've got almost a month worth of food packed up and in the house. Granted, I have to cook for myself, but hey, what the heck? I'm lazy, so I do it in, slow cookers, that sorts of things. But this whole situation has taught me a couple of things. One is I paid a lot more attention to what people were saying on the net, and this is why I say there has been some really positive changes. I've noticed on Facebook and what have you that there is a lot more of the positive things being shown. Okay, like I watched one today. A rabbit had gotten himself into a skateboard bowl. Some I don't know how he got in there. Didn't matter. But there were two people that I saw in the video trying to capture this poor little rabbit to get out of the skateboard hole, skateboard bowl, because the poor thing couldn't get out. But that's people helping animals. I'm seeing more and more people reaching out to help people as well. Okay, now all you have to look at is this. Well, it's not the only thing, but if you're going to claim freedom of choice, okay, if you're one of these people going, people have the right to make their own choice, then absolutely. And I'm a firm believer that you should have the right to make your own choice. But the reality is, if you're going to say that you have the right to choose your way, then it is absolutely imperative that you accept the fact that other people have the right to make their choices. Okay. Like I was in the grocery store the other day, and I saw somebody get absolutely agitated because they wanted him to wear a mask. Okay, and I'm like, okay, why are you getting mad? And he's screaming, it's my choice to wear if I want to wear a mask or not, which technically he's right. Well, literally, he's right. It is. But that choice means that the rest of the grocery store also had the right to choose not to let him come in. Whether he liked the consequences or not was not the issue. The issue was he wanted the freedom to make his choice, but he didn't want other people to have the freedom to make theirs. You're in the same boat. You have the right you were given the absolute, irrevocable right of free choice. Okay, you absolutely do have that right. But the consequences of said choice, you have to deal with. Okay, for me, it's very simple. Because of the life the way I look at the world, I go, okay, well, I don't desire to do this. The mask never bothered me, right? I didn't. I mean, I always held right from the get go that if a mask doesn't stop oxygen, it's not going to stop the virus. It will stop the spittle that carries the virus. It will not stop the virus itself. Okay, I like the one I saw the other day, just yesterday or this morning. I saw one, that said somebody that pants don't stop flatulence. How can a mask stop the virus? Well, it doesn't stop the virus. It stops the liquids that carry the virus. Okay. Now, that being said, if you don't like the mask, that's no problem. Don't go places where you have to wear it. Now, that does limit your options, but that's your choice. Okay, for me, it really boiled down to an issue of does that create a problem for me personally? No. Okay. I mean, it's kind of comical. I'm looking at this going, you people are getting caught up in the wrong thing. You're looking at what you're losing. I look at it and go this way. Because of the fact that I don't like the drivers in where I live, I decided I'm not driving that much. Net result, I'm walking more, so my weight's going down. My energy levels are going up. My pocketbook's growing better. I'm getting into better shape. My credit rating, because I'm paying my bills, is now climbing properly. These are things that this whole lockdown has done for me. And I've got rid of a lot of the junk that I used to have that I just didn't have a lot of use for. Okay. So these are things I'm gaining. And of course, I'm getting a better understanding of me, which is ultimately the real goal that would be very beneficial for everybody to do. Because the more we understand each other, the more we understand ourselves, the easier it's going to be to deal with other people. And once you get that in your head and you get the energy running in your own body, you'll find that you become healthier, more energetic, more emotionally stable. Net result, you'll be able to deal with the stresses of the outside world a little more readily. Then you work on the energy in your house, getting it moving the direction you desire it to. Okay, like for instance, I've got my office set up now. It's not perfectly clear. I keep telling myself I should clear it right before going to bed, but I usually end up working to the point that I'm absolutely exhausted and just don't have the energy left. So I end up going to bed and getting up in the morning and go, okay, before I can get started, best get my office sorted out. Okay. I've been working on the end of an epic I've been working on the end of an epic, getting it edited properly. I am still on track to get it out to get it finished before the end of this year. And I'll be going down today to double check and find out how much time they're going to need to actually put it to print once I get it written. Okay. That said, I'm also in the middle of writing book 12, and I found out something really neat. I worked out a couple of things in this one chapter I'm working on. One quick little note that I made for myself was 14 words long to say, this is what I got to cover. When I went back to write it, I worked it out, and when I finally wrote the expansion, it went from 14 words to almost 200. I was quite content with the way it came out. Okay, and that's only the first draft, so I'll go back through it and expand it after I get finished writing it. But again, this boils down to that neat little issue of set your goals, get focused on them, and make certain that you're taking care of the things that are necessary. It's very easy to identify what you're not content with. If you'll notice up on this shelf up behind me here, okay, up there I've got my Tolkien collection of the various books that I've got. And I've got the books that are up there. The other thing that's up on that same shelf is the actual collection, or at least most of it, that is in Casey's bar in the Yldrbac Chronicles. There's a library in there that lists off a number of books. Now, the one thing I'm not likely to end up with is some of the comics. I don't have them, and tracking them down could be a royal pain. But so be it. Okay, the books I'm collecting. Now the funny thing is, you take a look at what you're happy and what you're not content with, and start modifying those things. By doing that, you will save yourself a whole lot of hassles. Now, with that in mind, very important you start focusing on the positive sides of the things that what you're going through are bringing you. Let go to the best of your ability of the negative ones. Okay, literally speaking, you minimize the negative, maximize the positive. With that in mind, give us a thumbs up if you like the video, subscribe to our channel, and absolutely remember to hit the alert button to let you know when the next one comes out. And I will be back again tomorrow to talk to you then. Until that time, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.